Hello, I'm Juliette and welcome to my channel where I talk about all things city related, be it urban spaces, urban phenomenon, city policies, social justice policies, spaces. Did I say that already? A little introduction about me is I'm from Singapore and I just graduated Yale-NUS college with an urban studies degree, and after being a corporate hoe for like 8 months. I have to say I actually really miss studying and even writing essays about urban studies. So one step away from writing an essay that no one else will read, why not make a video essay about what I like? So if you're interested, you can join me in appreciating and also critiquing cities. Let's go! So for this video, I want to talk about public spaces, more specifically neighbourhood parks. Orthodox planning, or what they call conventional planners, always just think, okay, I'm gonna just slap some grass, slap some trees, slap some benches, or if I'm generous, into a space and ta-da, it's a park. Well, unfortunately, that's not always the case. So this brings me to the crux of my video, which is what makes a space, or more specifically a neighbourhood park, successful, and what makes it a perfect one. I'll explain the eyebrow raise later. I didn't feel this love for neighbourhood park ever until recently, just last year when I moved to this area called Kembangan. Beside the MRT station, there's this huge space. There's no name for it officially, but I'm just gonna call it the Kembangan Neighbourhood Park, okay? It didn't wow me at first, but as I walked past the park to go to the train station and come back every day, I see the transformation of the park from day to night and seeing various people use it. And before I knew it, I was one of the regular users of the park. I would go there to run, go there to hang out with my friend who lives nearby, I'll go there to dance. Yes, I even went there to dance. And afterward, if I think my outfit's like pretty cool, I'll like put down my phone there and just start videoing myself showing off my outfits. It hit me that actually, to me, Kembangan is really a very good park, and I would say actually it's the perfect neighbourhood park. And here's why. Point 1. Context and linkage. So this neighbourhood park is situated right next to Kembangan MRT station, which is a station along the Green Line. So what that means is immediate pedestrian traffic. So even if no one's interested in using the park, they'll definitely be passing by on the way to the train station or on the way back out of the train station. It's also intricately linked to this vast network of park connectors in Singapore. So you always get a steady stream of cyclists, of walkers, of runners and explorers, I would say. And finally, this park is situated within a huge neighbourhood of a very diverse nature. There's this condominium here, Astoria Park, and then there's also the HDB blocks there of Lengkong 3, Lengkong 2. And the other side, there's like a huge estate of landed property. So any resident wanting to use public transport, be it the bus or MRT, would likely pass by the park. Not just transportation, if they want to find a park, Kembangan Neighbourhood Park is the park nearby. On this note, Christopher Alexander is very specific about it. He says, if the greens are more than 3 minutes away, the distance overwhelms the need. So oftentimes generalized parks like this, compared to specialized parks like Chinese Garden, Botanic Gardens, Gardens by the Bay, East Coast Park, all of which people from all over Singapore or even other countries would really travel all the way down. For generalized parks like this Kembangan one, it's bread and butter stuff, you know, it's just it's meant for local use. And hence, they need to be really strategically located, but also very well linked via pedestrian paths or other kinds of access. But we can have like as many people passing by, but not all spaces invite people to use them. So let me give this example of U-Town Green. It's a big green field in the middle of University Town, which is the hub of student activity in NUS. It looks so beautiful, it's huge, nice to look at. But in my 4 years of living there, I've only seen this space used simultaneously by like 3 groups of people at a time. It's so underutilized. And why is that the case? It's because it is what it is. It's just a plain wide green field. There's no specific use, no form of enclosure. It's just hot sun. But what sets Kembangan Neighbourhood Park apart from the NUS U-Town Green example is the intricacy and diversity of users available there. Which brings me to my next point, the intricacy of users. So firstly, let's look at the facilities that are open and accessible for all to use. So there's the train station, there's the convenience store next to it, there's the physical exercise equipment, there's a playground, there's a track, there's that green field, there's a basketball court, there's some open space with very cute seating. There's also another basketball court. Why are there so many basketball courts? And also there's Kampong Kembangan Community Centre, which in itself has another host of facilities and amenities. So what these facilities do is they invite people to come to the park for particular reason, for their own reason, and not just pass by. And you realize that a common theme amongst many of these facilities is that they are built for sports and physical exercise. It's important that these sports facilities are made explicitly public and very visible to passers-by as a form of like free publicity of this area, like yay, see, they're having so much fun, and also a form of invitation, like you can be part of this space as well. This was how I started using this space despite only moving in a few months ago. So just a little side story, I had a knee surgery last year, and as part of my physiotherapy, I was instructed to run 20 minutes a day. So I started at my condominium gym, but I really didn't like it. So then I decided, I remember seeing a lot of people run around the track, why not I try that as well? And what I did was like, so I created my own playlist, I plugged in my earphones, and then I just started running around the track at my own pace. And honestly, that 20 minutes really just flew by. I really liked the fact that there was fresh air, open, wide spaces, and also, more importantly, I think it's just that buzz of having other people exercise around me. And this buzz is very different from the one you feel in the gym. I think the gym, a bit of like a unspoken etiquette, people will be judging me, and also the gym usually invites a very certain kind of demographic of people. The neighbourhood park invites all kinds of people who use the parks for different reasons. There's no one judging me on how I run around the track. Of course, there's a bit of competition lah. Sometimes someone will like run past you, then I'm like, okay, I also want to run past. But other than that, it's like free and easy, and it's just like, I just really love the vibe of this place. But what makes a space truly intricate, I believe, it's when there's a bit of different levels to it. So I think the beauty of this space, of these open spaces, is the perfectly curated hierarchy of spaces. As we move from the center of activity to just the edges of this park, you'll see cozier spaces, sitting spots. In fact, let's take a close look at this wall here, erected right in the middle of nowhere. It's actually quite genius. If you see that it kind of provides a support, like a backing to the playground, but it doesn't completely surround it. Surrounding the playground with a wall would restrict access towards the playground, so it even causes a kind of air of claustrophobia. But why was this wall built instead of just leaving the playground to a completely open surrounding? To give some sense of enclosure and comfort to users of the playground, particularly kids and their families. So Christopher Alexander says that people have primitive instincts where they seek areas that are partially enclosed and partly open. So like at the end of circuit breaker last year, my first instinct was that, oh man, I can't wait to dance with my friend. So we decided on this area at Kembangan, a neighbourhood park. It's an openly accessible space, even amidst the COVID-19 restrictions in Singapore. And because we wanted a sense of privacy amidst a bigger open space, us dancing at the space we won't feel like a spectacle. And it's not just us, right? Look at this couple dancing here. There's so much space around the park, but they chose that small little corner there. And then with privacy, we have to talk about seating spaces, which is a whole other category of urban design. In William H. White's 1980 documentary on the social life of small urban spaces, he noticed that it is the amount of sittable space available that's socially comfortable that attracts people to the plazas. So he learned that instead of building benches and seats which heavily limit the number of users as well as the kind of use for it, because a bench is just, okay, you sit on it, right? He noticed that the most popular seating spaces are those flat surfaces like ledges against a wall or some form of infrastructure where it can serve double duty as both a tabletop and a chair, and it can fit as many people as the friend group would like to fit in, you know? So back to the random curved wall, there are also steps built against the wall, and what this does is provide the perfect seating spot for anyone to sit down and just observe activity in front of them. So this is especially useful for parents. I see a lot of parents sitting there while their kids play in the playground. Personally, my favorite places to chill are these ledges against the raised flower beds, and I have to talk about this group of elderly people. Every evening, they would gather around this particular ledge. It's like their own kind of like, they're the popular kids in the park. On one hand, they probably come out every evening to enjoy the buzz of the activities that are happening in this neighborhood park. But on the other hand, they're kept comfortable in their pocket of privacy. They have their own comfortable space to just observe activity. So okay, talking about this elderly group here, right, brings me to my next point, which I'm most excited to talk about: the people themselves. What are the people using these spaces, and what can we glean from their experiences in these spaces? So I've been sounding a lot like an typical urban planner who believes that, okay, I design it in this way and hence it's successful. I mean, I talked about the facilities that are open and accessible, open spaces that have pockets of privacy, seating spots that are socially comfortable, but all these are just physical infrastructure. So in the afternoon, if I were to go to the park's empty because everyone's at work or it's because it's so hot, and the place is just physical infrastructure, I wouldn't walk past and think, wow, what a nice park. But when does this park actually feel like a neighborhood park, a successful, nice one? Is when there are people using them. And it's even better when there are different groups of people using them for their own unique reasons. And this brings me to point 3, which is the diversity of users. In terms of age, some neighborhood estates in Singapore are older than others. If you see this graph here, the older neighborhoods are more clustered in town or like central areas. Kembangan is more east and more central. It's actually considered one of the older neighborhoods in Singapore, with its history dating all the way back to kampong days. I personally believe that neighborhood space is successful when you see a somewhat proportionate demographic using the space as compared to the residents around there. In terms of this open space, I realize it's really used a lot by older people groups. Every Friday evening, there's always this group of elderly line dancing and even doing some fan dance. It's so cool! In the morning, there's always this group doing Tai Chi. So moving to the basketball court, I expected a lot of younger guys to be playing there, but surprisingly, there were like middle-aged men, younger people, of course, kids, and also girls, so that was a surprise. In terms of this exercise equipment area, it's a good mix of people. Other than elderly people using them, it's used by a lot of people as seating spaces, including myself. This space is also shared with younger kids. There's a rollerblading course happening every few nights, so there's a lot of young kids just rollerblading around. And actually, one memory I had in this open space, this uncle doing skateboard tricks relentlessly. Like, he was there for 10-20 minutes just trying that skateboard trick. And I was like, wow. So why is this important? Alexander brings this up in the need for each community to have a balance of people from each stage of the life cycle, so from infancy to elderly, and the necessary supporting settings for them. The rationale is that persons at each stage have something irreplaceable to give and take from the community, and this helps to solve the problem that beset each stage. So, okay, this sounds very philosophical. How would seeing a group of elderly people help me in solving my young adulthood issues, and vice versa? How would them seeing me dance with my friend, for example, help them in their problems? But I think the beauty of open spaces and public interactions is that you don't need to have direct interaction or actual chit-chat session for you to gain something out of the other person. Personally, right, when I see the elderly group do line dancing every week, or the Tai Chi group, and also the uncle skateboarding, and I think it chips away this fear a lot of us young people have of aging, and it tells me, it tells people around that your life and their sense of activity doesn't end in your youth, and that society in this kind of like welcoming public spaces will always embrace you at any stage of your life. So I would like to quote Prof. Chua about how the simultaneous presence of different participants and their activities in the space constitutes that open community. I believe that this is a physical manifestation of the entire life cycle at one space at one time. So to any user of the place, or even just a passerby, it brings a more well-rounded and even homely, village-like atmosphere to an otherwise highly urbanized, highly modernized neighborhood. Other than elderly users of the park, I really wanted to talk about the use of this park by foreign domestic workers. In Singapore, the foreign domestic worker is a very unique case because they are a special class of migrant workers that are excluded from the Singapore Employment Act. They're usually called domestic helpers. They're physically constrained in their employer's household, and only a few years ago, Ministry of Manpower regulated that they are entitled a day off every week. From there, you can see on Sundays especially, there are a lot of places populated by the foreign domestic workers, namely like Lucky Plaza, Paya Lebar, Golden Mile. But even though these foreign domestic workers are very integral to a lot of Singaporean households, when it comes to public space, there's a clear physical and social rift. And I'll have to say, okay, Kembangan Neighbourhood Park doesn't necessarily bridge that gap. But what made me realize that there's hope is that I think it's one of the few spaces in Singapore where we see a coexistence of both foreign domestic workers as well as local residents in the same space doing similar activities. Let me walk you through a typical Sunday. Every tree will usually have around one or two groups of picnickers, and they'll either be lying down on the floor chilling, or they'll be eating the food they prepared for each other. At the opposite side of the covered walkway, in a space that's obviously not meant for picnicking, you can also find picnickers at that site. And no matter the rain or shine, the time of the day, I would always see these groups of people there. And the thing is, for these foreign domestic workers who are typically confined to their household for the entire week, having access to this public open neighbourhood park is so important for them. However, I know I'm being actually pretty naive about this entire situation. Yes, this space holds so much importance to them, especially after a tiring week of work. But honestly, are they seen as important users of this space? I think the reality is that no, that's not the case. I finally go to my last point about the notion of the perfect neighbourhood. So I've been calling this neighbourhood perfect, and actually the choice is deliberate. Because in spite of the amazing diversity and intricacy of users and people in this space that constitute this like Kampung Kembangan spirit, these are all well within the state's determination of the perfect neighbourhood park. So Singapore, to a lot of foreigners, is known as a draconian nation. I wouldn't go as far to say that. I do say that it's a heavily state-controlled city with a lot of our land nationalised. And so a lot of these spaces are designed very thoughtfully and meticulously to constitute towards a master plan and this larger governing philosophy of what makes the Singapore modern nation. This isn't a bad thing, but I'm also wary about what's being left out of this narrative of this modern Singapore nation, and how does that translate to the spaces that are being built. Observing the use of this space by the foreign domestic workers made me realize that this space, though supposedly designed for bread and butter users, it's obviously not designed for them. They usually want to find places to sit, to eat, to talk to their friends. But this space is not designed for a full day use. There's not enough shade, there's not enough enclosure, there's not enough good spaces for picnicking. But who else? Look at this anti-homeless design on the seats. First I thought, oh, what a cool design. But turns out it's just so that people can't slip on them easily. And also look at their countless of signs. It was only from making this video I noticed there was like CCTV signs telling people that there's surveillance in this place. Another very interesting thing is that the lights at the basketball court turn off at 10 p.m. While the lights around the track turns off at 11 p.m, telling these users to go home, stop playing. You don't want anyone to loiter around there. The only lights left on are for people to head home. It is because this park is a neighbourhood park built for residents who work typically 9 to 5 jobs, and hence will only use the park in the morning or in the evening. And I am very aware that this kind of park is designed for people like me, Singaporean, who would use the park for that set of users. And it wants people like me to populate the park because I am one iteration of their target audience. And this is actually one of the ways, and a very unconscious way actually, that the state gains control by building perfect spaces for its ideal audience. And what more perfect way to see this play out is during the elections. So last year during elections 2020, I saw this Facebook group pop up. It's called Singaporeans Supporting the Government Because of Covered Walkways. So it's actually a satirical group that pokes fun at Singaporeans who vote based on the provision of infrastructure. And this is actually a narrative that parties heavily use. So I received a lot of pamphlets saying like, well, who cares about the pamphlets when I found a gem of a video like this? Let's watch.
Much has been done, and I look forward to doing even more. The MRT is coming to Juliette for the first time. There will be a new polyclinic. We are also upgrading the Siglap and Frankel estates, and we'll do it collaboratively with you, working with you to understand how you live and play, and then design the proposed changes around that. Finally, I believe that building a better home is not just about hardware. It's not just about the parks and the MRT spaces. It's about the people.
Oh, we upgraded this park, we built shelter along the walkway, we maintain your lifts. It's very clear, like, vote for me because I will give you that perfect urban infrastructure. And this Kembangan neighbourhood park is the perfect example of how this narrative plays out. It's describing this place in a very, very specific way, and note how each facility is carefully marked out for its meticulous design for the user, especially the covered walkway. Look, I just laughed out loud when I saw that. I know it's important to know utility-wise, but it's still funny. It's just like, yes, I built that covered walkway for you. What I'm trying to say is that urban design and infrastructure can really be one of the most convincing rhetoric of a political party or of the state in ensuring its legitimacy. Because urban design and infrastructure is typically seen as neutral, it's utilitarian, meant for every person without discrimination. But we see that there are so many forces at play when we build a space and when we use and maintain and regulate the space. But now, okay, so now that that's it, I'm not here to like talk smack about the government or anything like that, but I would say that it's so important that well-designed and nuanced public spaces like the Kembangan neighbourhood park are available and accessible for people to use and make their own. I think it is really my experience in public spaces that brings out the largeness and smallness of cities, and it makes me feel like a small part of a bigger picture. Post-production Juliette here, but I wanted to also add that I really appreciate the people that the park welcomes and brings in, while also being cognizant of the fact that it is unwelcoming to other groups of people. But with all this in mind, I think it helps us in building and deciding and designing places that can be possibly more welcoming for us all. So both rose-tinted lens and also one without the rose-tinted lens, if you get what I mean. So I think I've come to the end of my video. Oh my god, it's my first one! I don't know how I end this. Should I end this the typical YouTuber way? I think I've definitely left a lot of things unsaid. Definitely was not my best attempt at this video essay format, but please leave any kind of feedback and comments that you'd like to give, or if you're interested in me analysing a different kind of phenomenon or space, do include it as well. Ta-da!